So hey anime fan, the series name is What If Naruto is son of Jiraiya and Tsunade, so let's start the series. Medic! A gray-haired man roared, as he rushed holding a bloody bundle in his arms. I need a medic. A man stepped forward, glanced at the man's bundle before ordering for a gurney and flood of nurses. Are you alright, Kakashi-san? Fine, the gray-haired man answered tersely. But there's blood. It's all his, Kakashi interrupted, shaking his head. The doctor looked at him suspiciously for a second before motioning for him to place the boy gurney that one of the nurses brought. Kakashi watched as they took his students away, absent-mindedly. He sat down in one of the empty chairs in the lobby. Once upon a time, he'd been able to draw a single connecting line from his own genin team with Rin, Obito, and Minato-sensei and his current team. Sakura was so much like Rin, she had the potential to become an even better ninja than Rin had ever been if she was guided properly. Naruto reminded him a lot of Obito, from his determination to his unrequited crush on his female teammate to the goggles he still kept stuffed in his back pocket. Sasuke had reminded him so much of himself as a child, and not in any of the good ways. Then the Chunin exams came around and the three Sannin influenced his students in ways he never thought possible. Naruto had a sense of maturity about him. Sakura suddenly had a new vigor for training and medicine, and Sasuke was off lusting for power and Otogekyo by now. Who'd have thought that a few months ago he'd actually had high hopes for the three of them? No one would believe him if he told them that he even had dreams of grandeur for all of them. In his daydreams about them, Naruto would become the Hokage that he wanted, and he would be greater than even Minato-sensei. Sasuke would rebuild the Uchiha to be loyal to Konoha and her Kage. He'd even defeat his brother. Sakura would become strong, and she would find the love that she wanted, whether from Sasuke or Naruto or any other boy that she fancied. The three of them would all be great friends first, and teammates second. They'd become Konoha's next generation of heroes, and he'd have been the one that trained them and instilled in them that loyalty to each other and Konoha. But now, what a mess. He'd known as soon as he'd agreed to become a Jounin sensei that he would be able to deal with losing a genin, and helping the others with that death. But how was he supposed to deal with losing a genin to another village? How was he supposed to tell his remaining two genin how to continue on with their lives when a huge piece of themselves had just walked away from their home because of revenge and lust for power? How was he supposed to look the two of them in the eye, knowing that it was his own fault that their teammate was gone? How was he supposed to live with the knowledge that he'd helped the enemy village gain something so precious to the village and two 12-year-olds? Ah, Hataki-san? A doctor asked quietly, breaking him from his reverie. He jumped out of his seat. How is he? Well, he'll live. He'll have a long recovery time though. He broke through 3 ribs and one of his legs. He also has a mild concussion. But I'm not too worried about that. What I am worried about is that the kunai that we pulled. Wait a second, what kunai? You didn't know? Well, from what I can gather, first someone knocked Uzumaki-san unconscious after they'd made a hole through his chest. I'm guessing that it was Uzumaki-san's target, Uchiha Sasuke. There was a period of rest where Uzumaki-san's guest started healing his wound. It seems that either that the target, Uchiha Sasuke, or a third party stopped the healing by reopening the wound and then inserting a poisoned kunai. It seems that the poison itself is taking over his cells and then using it to attack his very body. It might be a variant of the effect produced when one of the Akimichis used the Sanshoku no Gonyaku, 3 colored pills. We still haven't found an antidote. I have sent one of the nurses for Tsunade-sama's for help. I believe she's working on an antidote for Akimichi Chuji-san after he used the Sanshoku no Gonyaku. Hopefully, it will work for Uzumaki Naruto-san. Is there anything we can do to help him fight this until then? If we knew what we were dealing with, I would say yes, but we don't. For now, Uzumaki-san's guest is busy keeping his body from killing itself, and I have some of this hospital's best doctors healing his chest wound. Until Tsunade-san has created an antidote, we've done all we can. He nodded quietly, and headed for the door. Naruto wasn't truly his student. He hadn't been his student for a while. If he thought about it, the true job of sensei to Naruto was Jiraiya-sama's. Jiraiya stared out at the village from his favorite spot, the Hokage Mountain. As a child, he'd used to come there to think, and stare out at the village, when he'd become a genin. Tsunade used to come up there to tell him how much of an idiot he was for sitting up on top of the mountain alone. Sarutobi-sensei, when he'd returned to the village for the Chunin exams, had told him over a few saucers of sake of how sometimes he'd find Naruto sitting up on the top of the mountain by himself sometimes, or how the Gaki would paint graffiti on the faces of the 4 Hokages. Sarutobi then proceeded to tell him how Naruto had then led 3 full ANBU squads and a full Hunter Nin squad all around the village for a day before finally he'd been forced to end the chase by stepping out of his office to capture the boy in a corner of a bathhouse. He'd had a good laugh over it, and could tell that Sensei had struggled to keep from laughing as well. Naruto was a good kid, he reminded him a lot of himself, though he did have a bit of Minato and Kushina in him. With Akatsuki on the move, Naruto will have to be trained in using the Kyuubi. But with so many people who remember the Kyuubi's chakra, it won't be that easy. I'll have to take him with me. He sighed to himself. Tsunade had gotten attached to the kid. Would she let him go? More importantly, would the brat want to leave his home? From his contacts, he understood that Akatsuki would come after Naruto in 3 years. Would the kid be willing to leave home, friend, and people to train with him for 3 years? From what he understood from Sensei, his friends and village were the things he fought for. They were all he truly had. Jiraiya-sama? White-haired Jounin, Hatake Kakashi asked, standing some feet away from him. The retrieval team led by Naruto Shikamaru has returned. Yeah, what's that gotta do with me? Naruto was in it. How'd the mission go? Kakashi sighed before sitting beside him. It was a failure. Akimichi Chuji and Hyuga Niji are still in critical condition. Inuzuka Kiba and his partner, Akamaru, are injured, but are expected to make a full recovery. Nara Shikamaru received the least amount of injuries, a broken finger. And Naruto? Naruto, someone, though I suspect it was Sasuke, ripped a hole through his chest. As his wound was healing, someone reopened the wound with a poisoned kunai and left it there. That was when I found him and brought him here. There wasn't time to stop for the med-nines to look after him without stopping. Has Tsunade looked at him yet? One of the doctors was going to get her as I was leaving. I thought it would be best if I told you myself, instead of you hearing through the village gossip. Thank you, Kakashi. Kakashi bowed. Before he began the laborious climb down, he knew that the Toad Sage would come down in his own time. Personally, he probably wouldn't have left the Hokage Mountain either. He would have stayed there until someone called for him, or he'd finally processed the news. He wasn't even sure that he had processed the news that someone would go so far as to attempt to kill Naruto in such a low manner. But then again, they were shinobi, and they always used tricks to get what they wanted. One day after the retrieval mission. Shit, hurry up with those seals, Jiraiya. Tsunade cursed, as she began close wound after wound. I'm working on it, Tsunade. Jiraiya snarled from his seat, his brush flying over every part of gauze. The poison in his student's body had suddenly started reacting by cutting up his body from the inside out. The cuts had started coming out at random, and were mostly shallow, until they started appearing by his tenketsus. Jiraiya swore that the cuts were so deep that he could see the boy's bones, so he sent one of the nurses for Tsunade while one Dr. Tojiro attempted to heal him. Tsunade had then commanded him to begin sealing a roll of bandages, while she tried to help the blonde as much as possible. Done! He shouted. Tsunade didn't even look at him. She simply reached for the bandage. Without stopping, she began wrapping it around the blonde, lifting him and sliding it underneath. As soon as it was done, she pushed chakra into it. The cuts that had started appearing while she had wrapped the bandages around him immediately started closing. The seals glowed for a few seconds. Naruto groaned softly his sleep for a second, and then everything was quiet. Is he? For now, he'll be fine. Call me if anything changes. I've got to get back to the antidote. 2 days after the retrieval mission, Jiraiya brushed the soft, golden locks of his student away from his face, letting his hand rest on the boy's feverish forehead. He wondered to himself if this was what his son would have looked like as he stared down at the 12-year-old boy. Funny that Naruto would have been born on the same day as his own child had it survived. Without a doubt, he believed that if the child had survived, Tsunade wouldn't have run off like she did. If anything, their child and Naruto would have grown up in the same house as brothers. But, according to the doctors, little Hikaru passed away 20 minutes after being born. Tsunade, still in pain after giving birth, left the village just minutes after Minato had arrived to take his own son to become a Jinchuriki. He had stayed and fought alongside the other Konoha shinobi, holding the 9 tails back while waiting for Minato to arrive. After it was all over, he found that the hospital had been hit, and no one could find the body of the Sanin's dead baby. They were too busy celebrating the destruction of the Kyuubi. That night, he left the village. He never thought of returning. But Sarutobi-sensei had told him that little Uzumaki Naruto was someone he'd be interested in meeting. So he met the brat, didn't understand at first why sensei would want him to meet the kid, but after he could see that Minato and Kushina's spirit had definitely been passed down to the kid, the same spirit that he once had as a young man. He'd found it endearing. But now, with the kid in the hospital, it was far from endearing, it was stupid, and most importantly, it nearly killed the kid. Hopefully, it was keeping him alive. He bent down and whispered, "Keep fighting, Naruto. Keep fighting, and I promise I'll train you to become even greater man than your father could have ever hoped to be." 3 days after the retrieval mission, Dr. Tojiro Daichi had never been out in the field, though he had seen his fair amount of enemy ninja. Living in a ninja village, he had also seen his fair amount of weird things. It was impossible not to when you live in the same village as people who could talk to dogs, house bugs in their bodies, or could see at least 60 meters around them by the time they were 8. But one of the weirdest things he'd ever seen was actually very common in other villages, just not this one. For 12 to 13 years a child lived by a different identity, different name, a different life, in a ninja village. Clan, blood, family name, and even first name were among the most important things on every parent's minds. It all defined the type of ninja that their child would eventually become, and yet, one child, the container of the 9-tailed fox, had been doing it for the past 12 years. The kid had grown up as an orphan. He'd probably been told that his parents had died during the fight against the Kyuubi, and that he would probably grow up without a family in a village where family is one of the most important things to each individual ninja. It seemed that it would be almost impossible for someone to not know who their true parents were. But this kid had been going under the wrong name for his whole life, truly. Uzumaki Naruto should be Senju Naruto, son of Senju Tsunade and Jiraiya of the Sannin, and great-grandson of Senju Hashirama the Shodaime Hokage. It seemed that it would be also impossible that this find would only be made because a young and eager apprentice needed blood to practice some of his jutsu-san. Thank Kami he'd made the man swear to never speak of what he just found under pain of death. Most things concerning the Uzumaki boy or the Sannin were considered S-class village secrets. Tojiro Daichi grabbed the vial of blood and his apprentice's findings and headed straight for the Godaime's office. She needed to be informed that her son was still alive. 4 days after the retrieval mission. "Will this work?" Jiraiya murmured, his dark eyes never leaving Naruto's face. He didn't bother looking anywhere else. He'd already seen it in the past 3 days, enough to be able to picture it easily in his mind. The boy's chest was wrapped in sealed bandages, pale sweaty skin peeked out in intervals around them. His sunny blonde hair had been pushed away so that they wouldn't stick to his face as little beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. A grimace of pain graced the face that usually held a grin. Across from him, Tsunade was reaching for a towel. She'd just finished administering the antidote she had created for Naruto. It hadn't been easy, since she had to figure out what the poison was doing to the young genin exactly, before actually finding an antidote for it. 3 days of hard work that would, with any luck, heal the little brat. "Pray to whatever god there is that it does," she murmured, "because if it doesn't, I don't know what we'll do." Jiraiya looked up at Tsunade. He could see the fear in her eyes easily. He was sure that she could see the same fear in his own eyes. How couldn't he be afraid? This was his son, the son that he thought was dead, lying on this bed near death. If Tsunade couldn't heal him, would he run again? Would Tsunade? Especially if he knew that his son died trying to save his best friend, just as he had attempted to do years before. "Kami-sama, please," he whispered quietly, brushing away the wild blonde locks from his son's forehead. 5 days for the retrieval mission. It hurts a lot," he thought to himself as he tried to blink the sleep away. He was about to move his hand to rub his eyes, but realized that the warmth emanating from it wasn't his own. He turned his head slowly to find that the hand that was wrapped around it belonged to none other than Tsunade Oba-chan. That was strange. No one besides Sandemaji-chan had ever held his hand, not even Irika-sensei. Her hand felt soft and smooth, but he could see the faint scars on her knuckles. They were the signs of a trained shinobi. He smiled softly. Tsunade Oba-chan wasn't that much of a slacker apparently. Suddenly, Tsunade Oba-chan stirred. Her hand gripped his tighter before bleary eyes stared into his own. "Naruto?" she whispered. He grinned mischievously. "Nah, you're just dreaming, Ba-chan. The bottles of sake will be marching in here in a few seconds. Just wait." To Bayo, she rolled her eyes at him, but she didn't pull her hand out of his. He didn't bother to do so either. It felt nice to actually have someone want to touch him. How are you feeling? Anything hurting? She asked him, frowning. He thought for a second about telling her about the pain in his chest. She must have read his mind or something, because immediately she asked about his chest. It hurts a bit, he conceded. Before she could do anything though, he tightened his hold on her hand and asked, Bachan, did Sasuke come back with us? When she didn't answer, he let go of her hand and turned over on his side. Failure. He'd been unable to keep his promise to Sakura-chan. How could he face her when he told her that it was a promise of a lifetime? How was he supposed to become Hokage if he couldn't even save his own best friend? How was everyone in the village supposed to acknowledge his strength if he couldn't bring back one of the very first people to acknowledge him? It didn't make sense. Too quick, hot tears ran down his cheeks. Quickly, he wiped them away, knowing that Tsunade was still in the room. He heard her moving softly around the room, shuffling things about. Then suddenly, he felt her arms wrapping around him and lifting him off the bed. He froze, and then he heard her whisper, "It's okay, Naruto, go ahead and cry, it's okay." Those words seemed to just break the dam, because immediately, hot, burning tears rushed down his cheeks. All he could think about was his inability to bring back Sasuke and his broken promise to Sakura. A/N. Well, my first published story with this account, yay me. I've working on this thing for months, with absolutely no intention of putting it here. Obviously, I changed my mind, anyways. So this story is a bit AU-ish. And if you think that the little crying scene at the end is way too OOC for Naruto, please remember that Naruto has lost the guy he looked as his brother. Not only that, but Naruto is always a who keeps his word, and I think this failure was just too much for him. Eventually, people just break, and Naruto was due for a good crying session. I don't believe that after all the crap that Naruto went through in the series, he wasn't just going to stop for at least a moment and let out a few tears. The kid's 12 years old. For Christ's sake, he has emotions. But whatever, I'm ranting here, lol. So what do you guys think, huh? What can I improve? What did I miss during the editing process? Is there anything in the chapter that feels just too weird, AU or not? Leave a review. They actually encourage me to update, you know? Means somebody is actually reading this crap. In later years, Tsunade would chalk it up to motherly instincts rising through. In later years, Jiraiya would laugh and say that it was one of the most wonderfully embarrassing things that he got to see Tsunade do. In later years, Naruto would smile softly and say it as the first of many mother-like things that Tsunade would do. The older blonde wrapped her arms around her son, and cradled him close, whispering softly, "It's okay, Naruto, you can cry." At first, she thought that she'd misjudged, and that holding the boy this close so quickly would only embarrass him. But seconds later, she heard the heaving sobs. She held him tighter, ignoring the wet tears she now felt on her shirt. She kept murmuring into his ear, "It's okay, Naruto. It's all going to be okay," and slowly rubbing his back as the sobs gave way to hiccuping tease, and then even breaths. She knew he tired himself out. Carefully, she attempted to maneuver him back onto the bed, only to be surprised by the strength of his grip around her waist. She could have easily pulled it off, but instead she cradled him close again. "Kid's not as stupid as he looks," Jiraiya chuckled. Tsunade snapped her head up, surprised. "I thought you were sleeping." "Unlike you, I don't snore," he retorted. "Is he alright?" "He will be, eventually." She brushed her free hand along his blonde hair. "What does eventually mean?" he asked, quickly crossing the space between him and the bed. He stood uncomfortably at the edge, but his eyes never left the blonde boy in her arms. Tsunade sighed softly. "You forget that he is 12 years old, Jiraiya. Physically, he'll ready for duty in a week or so. Mentally and emotionally, I'm not sure. He's just lost his teammate, and you and I both know how painful it can be." A quick nod, and a whispered, "I know. The only medicine there is for that type of pain is sleep and time. Eventually, he'll be ready again. He just needs time." "Heh, the one thing he doesn't have." "What do you mean?" "I told you that the Akatsuki's after him, right?" "Yes, I remember. Once people find out that he's our son, he'll have to worry about more people than just the Akatsuki." "Orochimaru?" "Probably, Iwa too, and if that idiot Sansho no Hanzo of the Salamander, is still alive, he might take it into his head to come after Naruto. And of course, we can't forget that old dog, Danzu, and those idiots on the council." "Danzu wouldn't dare, and the council follows his lead most of the time. He'll do anything that he thinks will strengthen Konoha. Even kill the Hokage's son. Jiraiya paused, stroking the bright blonde locks of his son. Softly, he murmured, I'll have to take him out of Konoha for training. Why? She whispered, staring at him with wide eyes. Can he be trained here? In Konoha, he is, legally, Hataki's student. Now that Hataki has lost the Uchiha, he'll want to keep what he can of his genin team together. If I take him out of Konoha, and he is my apprentice, what makes you think that he'll let you take Naruto away then? What makes you think I'll let you take him? Jiraiya stared resolutely at her. Hataki won't object if you back me up when I say that I'm making him my apprentice. So you want to take him from me to train him into becoming another pervert, just like you? She deadpanned. Yes, I mean no. No, I plan on teaching him the sage arts. Isn't he a bit young for that? He's got potential. He'll probably finish the Rasengan and master the Hiraishin before he's 14. He just needs someone to pay attention to him. Tsunade. Jiraiya abandoned his place at the foot of the bed, and in one quick stride, stood beside her and the sleeping Naruto. He lowered his voice so as to not disturb the boy. Did you see his file? In his first year at the academy, he did so well that he could have become one of Konoha's best genin by the time he was 8. He's mastered the Kagebunshin, a Jounin-level jutsu, and he did it in a few hours. There's nothing wrong with him, mentally or physically, he just needs someone to show him what to do. Hataki didn't pay enough to him, so of course, he didn't grow. I'll train him to become better than the both of us, at a younger age. Tsunadeheim, please Fine. What? I said fine, you can train him, just return him to me without your perverted tricks, or I will be forced to castrate you with a dull kunai. Really? Yes, really, you moron, I'll castrate you. And not that, I don't doubt that you'll castrate me, but I mean, you'll let me take him? Yes, just leave me one of your frogs, toads, frogs, and I'll come by whenever I can to that mountain place of yours. Wait, you can't come to MT, Myobokuzen. That's like Sakura. Of course, Tsunadeheim, whatever you say, could you please let go of me, please? Whatever I say, got that, Jiraiya? I'm his mother, I have a bigger hold on him than you do, at least he calls me by my actual name. You don't even get that, you get an insult for a name. I'm not the one he calls Hag, though, Tsunade-bachan. Go back to sleep, Ero-senin. When Naruto awoke, there was no warm hand wrapped around his. Instead, there was the sound of soft snoring. He turned slowly to find the sleeping form of Jiraiya laid out on 2 chairs. The pervert's back was against the wall, and his head was lolling back against the chair. Naruto smiled softly, and turned back to his original position. Any moment now, someone would come in and tell Tsuna. Oh shit, Tsunade-bachan. In a moment everything came rushing back to him, crying like a little kid in front of Bachan, then letting her cradle him, while she sobbed like some baby. He was a ninja, damn it. He was supposed to be above stupid emotions like that. He was used to being alone. He'd been alone for 12 years. He was used to no one caring if he was hurt, or caring if his heart felt as if someone had ripped it out, or caring if his whole body ached so much that it hurt to even think. He was a ninja, damn it. Who was he kidding? He was failure. What kind of Hokage couldn't save his best friend from himself? What kind of ninja failed missions? What kind of idiot couldn't save the guy he loved like a brother from his own ambitions? Without meaning to, he began to cry silently. It just hurt too much. In a second, a warm hand was there again, but rougher, larger, and heavier. No words were said by the hand's owner this time. The hand only rubbed circles on his back. He turned to face the hand's owner. You okay, Naruto? Jiraiya whispered, pulling his hand back. He smiled reassuringly. He nodded shakily, and roughly wiped at his eyes. It was one thing to cry in front of Tsunade-bachan. It was a completely other thing to cry in front of Ero-senin. Crying in front of a guy. How low would he get? I'll send for Tsunade, then, Jiraiya said, and quickly walked out the door. Over his shoulder he said, if you're up to it, you can tell us what happened out there. Tell us what happened. Oh, Kami-sama, tell them what happened. Tell them that Sasuke tried, and almost succeeded, to kill him? Tell them that Sasuke left Konoha of his own free will, and wasn't kidnapped as they all had thought? How was he supposed to do that, and still make them willing to let him bring Sasuke back from Orochimaru team? Because he would bring Sasuke back. He promised Sakura that he would. It was a promise of a lifetime. Don't worry. I'll bring him back. Promise of a lifetime. I said that it was a promise of a lifetime, and I broke it. I couldn't bring him back. I couldn't bring you back, Sasuke. He turned to stare out the window. It was a beautiful day outside. He could the villagers scurrying about their business. If he leaned forward a bit, they all seemed so normal, so peaceful. They shouldn't. Didn't they know that their demon brat had failed to bring back their Uchiha? Didn't they know of his failure? Naruto? He whipped his head to the door to see Tsunade Bachan, and just behind her, Erosenin. He blushed for a second, remembering his moment of weakness in her arms. She smiled at him, reassuringly, and reached for the clipboard at the foot of his bed. She walked around him, checking everything, muttering sometimes. Finally she said, "Well, it seems the poison is completely out of your system, and that your tenin has healed just about all of your injuries. We'll want to keep you here for a few more days, just to be sure." "What happened?" Naruto asked. She sat down in one of the chairs that Jiraiya had previously occupied. "When Kakashi first brought you here, you had 3 broken ribs, a broken leg, and a mild concussion. Besides that, you had a hole through your chest, with a poison kunai dug into it. The poison was something we'd never seen before. To put it simply, your body was attacking you from the inside, eating you away. Jiraiya and I were forced to create sealed bandages. Or else you would have died here. Your tenant was hard-pressed just to make sure your body didn't bleed out on the hospital bed. We found an antidote that finally worked, and we've recorded it for future use." She looked straight into his eyes. "But other than that, we know nothing." He turned his face away from her. "Tell her that Sasuke was probably being used by that snake bastard. Tell her that he was a failure." "Naruto? I need to know what happened out there. Can't Kakashi tell you? He was there, right?" Naruto whispered. "Kakashi only knows that he found you alone at the bottom of the valley. I'm sorry, but it will help, I promise." Tsunade reached over and squeezed his hand. That was the second time. She held his hand for the second time. She didn't flinch. She didn't have some pained expression on her face because she was touching him. She was the same. Would she change after he heard of his failure? Of course she would. They all would. "Naruto, it's okay. Chuji was first," he whispered. "Some dumbass guy named Jirobo fought him. He was really strong. Trapped us in some jutsu of his. But Shika figured a way out. After that, Chuji told us to leave. We didn't want to, but the mission was on the line. Sasuke was still heading north, so we left him, and told him to catch up as soon as possible. Then, it was Niji. He fought the one they treated as the leader. Kidomaru. Guy had like 4 arms or something. We left Niji to fight him. But we split up again. In the end, Kiba went up against this weird guy with a hump on back. Shika fought the girl. I went on ahead. I was almost caught up to him, when I met up with this guy, Kimamaru. He fought me using his bones as weapons. Then Fuzzy Brows showed up, and I kept on going ahead." He turned to face Tsunade and Jiraiya. "When I found him, I told to come back with me, but he wouldn't, so we fought. It was just like before on the roof. I couldn't touch him. He was always too fast. When I used the Kyuubi's chakra, I could finally hit him. I was faster than him, and stronger too. But then he changed again. His Sharingan evolved, I think. His movements changed. It was like he'd been holding back in the beginning, and now he wasn't. This Sasuke was too strong for me. He must have knocked me out, because the next I remember, I was standing in front of the Kyuubi's cage, and then the Kyuubi's chakra was all around me. It felt like the first I'd used it, fighting Haku on the bridge in Wave Country, except that it was thicker, and it hurt a lot more than I remember it ever hurting, and then it was like I wasn't me anymore. I was something else, because of the Kyuubi. In the end he changed, too, into something that wasn't Sasuke. I think it was that seal that Orochimaru gave him in the forest. I tried to fight him off, but it came down to our strongest techniques. My Rasengan and his Chidori. I went for his Hittite forehead protector, he went for my chest. It hurt more than even using the Kyuubi's chakra, but I scratched his Hittite, and he said I couldn't even touch it. After that, I remember being woken up by that idiot Kabuto above me. I tried to get away. I tried to punch him. I tried everything. But there was a rag in my mouth. My hands were tied down, and so were my feet. And every time I tried to fight him, he banged a kunai against my ribs. I gave afterwards, and let him do what he wanted with me. Before he left, he said about Sasuke becoming Orochimaru's new body. I still don't understand what he meant. I just know that it isn't good for Sasuke." Naruto snorted. Anything that has to do with Orochimaru isn't good. Next thing I knew, Kakashi was taking me back, and then, that's it. You did great, Naruto, Jiraiya answered, patting his leg. You were awake the entire time? Tsunade whispered, glancing down. He nodded. Thank you, Naruto, you did well. In a second, she was gone. Erosenin murmured something unintelligible before he followed her out. Quietly, he lay down to stare at the ceiling. Just like he thought, she changed the second he heard about his failure. She couldn't even look at him. I'm a failure. Crash. Jiraiya winced as he glanced at the glass vase, now a pile of shards on the floor. Tsunade, you have to calm down, he said, taking a step closer to her, the raging woman. Calm down? She hissed. Calm down? He was awake the entire time, Jiraiya. She grabbed her entire desk and threw it at the door, narrowly missing him. That bastard tortured him, and you asked me to calm down. She looked around the room to find something to throw, but she'd already thrown just about everything that could be thrown already. She dropped to her knees, ignoring the pricks of pain she felt as she did. This is my fault. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have sent him. I shouldn't have sent any of them. They're just genins, for Kami's sake. What the hell was I thinking? You were thinking that Konoha's best and strongest genins could retrieve their kidnapped comrade, Jiraiya answered. He took a step closer to her. You were thinking that, with little knowledge other than one eyewitness, that Uchiha Sasuke could be retrieved by this village's best. Another step, you believed the reports. And you were right. If you had more information, and more manpower, you would have sent more genins, perhaps a chunin that wasn't new to the position. Another step, Tsunade, you were amazing. Those genin were amazing. But you can't always protect everyone. He took the final step. You can't always protect Naruto. He's a ninja. And these are the things that come with the job. He wrapped his arms around her and let her sag against him. It's alright though. Our son is strong, and brilliant in his own way. And right now, he needs you to be strong for him, alright? She nodded softly, but let the tears come down. Now Naruto needs you, Jiraiya continued. And so do a lot of patients in this hospital. Not only that, but the council needs to be informed. Missions need to be given out. Life does not stop here. Life continues on. We often wish it would stop for us. That reality would let us have a breath to ourselves. But it doesn't stop here. So we can either, in a little while. You can visit Naruto and tell him whatever it is that Hokages tell their ninjas after they have done their very best for their village. And you'll be fine. Everything will continue on. You'll be fine, I promise. I'm a failure. He stood quietly in the middle of the room. On the left of him was Niji, and on the right was Chuji. Niji was hooked to some machine that beeped every few seconds, and Chuji had a mask over his mouth. Niji had bandages all around him, and Chuji had an four hooked up to his arm. The index finger of his right hand was wrapped up, and placed in a splint. It was his only injury. It seemed so small compared to theirs. Niji had holes in his body. Chuji had been forced to use a family technique that nearly killed him. Though he wasn't here, Kiba had a serious stomach wound, and there was a chance that Akamaru wouldn't be able to walk for a while. Lee was somewhere in the hospital recovering from wounds that he got fighting that Kimimaro guy, and Naruto was suffering from some poison that had been put in him, and a hole in his chest thanks to the Uchiha. He clenched his left hand tightly into a fist, and his fingers dug themselves into his palms. His entire body shook. It's his fault that you're all here. He couldn't just stay in the village. He had to have more. But it's also my fault that you're here, he whispered. I should have done things differently. Maybe if I had, you guys wouldn't be here. I'm sorry. Next time. I'll do better, I promise. Shikamaru turned around and headed out of the room. I failed you guys this time, but next time I'll do it better. I thought we'd gone over this already. Shikamaru stopped. He recognized the voice immediately. It was Sarutobi Asuma's. He was a man that he respected. He was the man that had made him actually want to work towards something that didn't happen often. When Shikamaru had first seen him, there had been a certain air around him. Something that said behind his lazy attitude and constant cloud of smoke, there was something to be feared about this man. Something to be in awe of. He'd shaken it off. The man acted too lazy, smoked too often, talked too much. His own father acted lazy, never smoked, and almost never talked, and he was pushed around by his mother, a civilian. But the first time that Team 10 had gone on a C-ranked mission, the first time that Team 10 saw something that might potentially take away their lives, Asuma-sensei got rid of his cigarette and fought. He was dangerous. When the enemy was dead, there had been this glint in Asuma-sensei's eye, blood splattered on his uniform and drops of it on his face. He'd wiped it away, comforted Ino immediately, and congratulated them on a job well done. They'd survived, even though Asuma had done most of the work, most of the killing. Shikamaru was scared of the man, freaked out by him, really, yet, he was in awe of him, completely in awe of him. After that, Shikamaru had thought, I want to be like Asuma-sensei. He wanted to be strong like him, but what he knew best was strategy. And it was what Asuma-sensei taught him through Shugi. Been over what? Shikamaru asked over his shoulder. Asuma walked up to him till they were standing side by side. You blaming yourself for what happened to everyone, you did your best. But you and the Hokage lacked enough intel to know what the hell was going on. You did fine for your first mission. I don't want to talk about this, Shikamaru answered, and started walking down the hall again. Besides, I'm not blaming myself completely. Asuma walked in time with him. Oh? Who else are you blaming? The Uchiha. For what? Leaving? Becoming a traitor? Well, he stopped suddenly and asked, why couldn't he just be normal? Why couldn't he just stay in the fucking village? He'll never know that people nearly died trying to get him. He'll never care. He never cared about anybody but himself. Why did we have to go save him? Why couldn't they send someone else? Or just let him be kidnapped or killed? He would have been better off. We all would have been better off without him. Excuse me, a nurse said scowling, as she suddenly appeared in front of him. I'm not sure you remember this, but this is a hospital. People are trying to rest. Yes, we're very sorry, Asuma said, as he started to lead him away. Where's this coming from? He asked, as soon as they were outside. You never care about these types of things, at least not before. Chuji almost died. I know, Shika, but he's going to be alright now because of Hokage-sama. Niji almost died, same thing for Kiba and Akamaru. I still don't know what's happening with Naruto. Then there's Lee. He would have died had it not been for that kid from the sand. The puppet guy basically saved Kiba, and that Tamari girl saved my life. I know all of this, Shikamaru. Yes, you know. But the Uchiha will never know. He'll never know that we all nearly died trying to bring him back to the village. He'll never know that he's broken Ino's heart. He'll never know that Sakura's heart is also broken his own teammate. He'll never know anything, but I will. We'll all be the ones that are left to clean up the mess that he's left behind because he wanted. Who knows what he wants? He never cared about anything beside himself. Not in the academy. Not when he was genin. Not even when we all saved his team during the exam, and he just walked out of here. Asuma-sensei, I hate Uchiha Sasuke. I don't care how many more retrieval teams, or rescue teams they send out, and I don't care how many times that the Hokage-sama might send me out there to help bring him back to the village. I wish Uchiha Sasuke was dead, because he'll never know. He'll never know how much damage he's done to all of us. He turned his head to see the hospital behind him. They were all in there, his team. I failed you guys this time, but I promise, next time I'll do it perfectly. Next time I see you, Uchiha Sasuke, I promise that I'll kill you myself. A/N. So it's been a while, yeah? I always thought that canon never really put enough attention to retrieval team's injuries, and most of all, that Shikamaru's little tantrum-like thing was never really expounded on. Maybe it's because he's too lazy to care. Maybe it's because what's-his-face didn't want to put enough attention to Shikamaru, and focus more on Team 7, so, with this reasoning, Shikamaru's scene emerged. That and well, I had a dream, lol. Anyways, does notice the recurring theme for this chapter? I'm a failure, lol, it's a little obvious, but whatever, I decided not to put the phrase at the end of Shikamaru's part, because it couldn't be more obvious that he felt that he failed his team. However, unlike Tsunade and Naruto, he's doing something about it, he's working through it, promising that next time he'll do better. Next time, they won't all be near death when they return from a mission. So, tell me what you think. Feedback, people. LOL, anything feel weird? Anything feel OOC? Grammatical or spelling errors? Editing problems? Story flow? What do you think? Your opinion does matter. Sakura hesitated when she saw the ANBU stationed at the door. The faceless shinobi was intimidating in his black armor and porcelain dog mask. That couldn't be Naruto's door, right? They only set ANBU soldiers at the doors of important people like daimyos or high-ranking shinobi and kages. She must be on the wrong floor, right? Ah, Sakura-san, someone greeted from behind her. She whirled around to see the Godame Hokage, Tsunade, walking towards her. In her arms, she held a single clipboard. I was wondering when I'd finally see you. You're here to visit Naruto, right? She nodded. Good, he's been asking for you, she said with a small smile. Come on in. She walked straight up to the ANBU, who took a step to the right after glancing at her for a second. Sakura, still a bit hesitant, followed. When Kakashi-sensei had told her that Naruto had been injured during the mission, she'd imagined just about everything from him missing several limbs to being permanently paralyzed. When Kakashi-sensei said injured, it had to mean that something happened to Naruto that Tsunade-sama couldn't fix. She wasn't expecting to see her blonde teammate with bandages wrapped around his head and arms. She wasn't expecting the bandaged blonde head leaning over a comic held by two equally bandaged hands. She didn't expect Tsunade-sama to push him back from the comic and begin scolding him about sitting too close and ruining his eyesight. She certainly didn't expect Naruto and Tsunade-sama to be so familiar with each other. Of course, she'd heard that Jiraiya-sama was teaching him. How couldn't she? It was the talk of the village, even more so when people began talking about him summoning the boss toad during his fight with Sabaka no Gara. But how did that lead to him being so familiar with the Godame Hokage? Sakura-chan! Naruto shouted excitedly, breaking her from her thoughts. I've been waiting for you, Tebeo. He grinned brightly. Tsunade-ba-chan and Erosenin and Shizune-chan won't let me have a lot of visitors. But I've been asking them to let me see you since I woke up. Sit down. He pointed at the chair next to his bed. Quickly, he closed up the comic and let Tsunade put it on a small nightstand next to it. Naruto, where's Jiraiya? Tsunade asked. He's not off peeping again, is he? She narrowed her eyes as she turned to the window as if to spot her former teammate from there. Naruto's blue eyes widened for a second before he answered. Of course, he is, Databeo. What else would he be doing? Tsunade turned straight to him. Is he out getting ramen again? She didn't wait for him to answer, she just began to rant. Naruto, how many times have I told you? Ramen has absolutely no nutritional value. You're stunting your growth, and endangering your health by eating that. And what's worse is that Jiraiya actually listens to you. Kami-sama, give me patience with the two of you. Naruto grinned. It's not my fault that your hospital food tastes like crap. It's a hospital. Shouldn't the food taste, I don't know, good? To help all the medicines go down, and stuff, Databeo. Tsunade rolled her eyes. I'm going to find Jiraiya. Ma, Naruto grumbled, that's not fair. You get to go find Erosenin while I'm still stuck in here. Sakura-chan and I could have been at Ichiraku's or something, Databeo. She waved before leaving the room. Naruto muttered something before turning solemnly to her. I'm sorry, Sakura, I failed you. I wasn't strong enough to bring Sasuke back for you. Sakura smiled softly, and she patted his hand. Don't worry, Naruto. Of course I worry, he exclaimed. I made a promise of a lifetime to you, Sakura-chan. And I never go back on me word. Databeo. I know you will, she answered. And next time I'll be strong enough to go with you. We'll bring him back together. Naruto stared at her for a moment, before he nodded slowly. We'll bring him back. Together. For about an hour or so, she visited with Naruto. They talked about everything and nothing. He told her about Jiraiya-sama, though he called him Erosenin, and Tsunade, though he called Bachan despite her youthful appearance. She told him how the rest of the retrieval team were faring. Shikamaru had a broken finger. Kiba received a deep wound but was healing just fine. Akamaru had all the nerves in his legs cut, but Kiba's sister said he'd be alright soon. Niji was healing from internal injuries, and Chuji was healing from a dangerous family technique. They talked about Kakashi-sensei being away when they actually needed him. They talked about Gaara and all the other sand ninjas that had finally left Konoha, but they never spoke of their missing teammate. She breathed in a lungful of fresh Konoha air. It was good to get out of there. Though Naruto's room smelled nice, the other rooms in the hospital smelled like medicine and sickness. She had no way to describe it, but that's what they smelled like to her. After she'd visited Naruto, she'd stopped by Kiba's room to say hello, which led to her seeing Chuji, Lee, and Niji. Niji was walking around, with assistance of course. Kiba didn't like to walk too far from Akamaru, so he stayed mostly in his room. Lee was walking with a crutch, but he was told that he'd be fine soon. Chuji was resting on his bed, and he looked tired but happy to see everyone. Ino and Shikamaru from Team 10 were also there. Tenten was visiting Niji and Lee, and Hinata was visiting Kiba while Shino was away on a mission with his dad. Shikamaru's finger was still in a splint, but other than that he seemed fine. Ino had been loud as usual, but she seemed to be in a much better mood now that Chuji was doing better. Tenten spent most of the time just talking with Niji and Lee. They'd all be interested in Naruto, but she'd been ordered by the ANBU ninja guarding the door, as she was leaving, not to speak of his condition. It all seemed so weird to her. She felt as if she shouldn't be walking out of the hospital, that Naruto should be running and jumping around like he usually did beside her, that Sasuke should be here, glaring at the back of Naruto's head, and telling him to knock it off already. She shouldn't be all alone. It just didn't make any sense. 1 minute, they were Team 7, Hatake Kakashi's Team 7. Now Sasuke was gone, Naruto was in the hospital, quiet, Kakashi-sensei was off doing missions for the village, and here she was, walking home alone. What happened to us? What happened to Team 7? What happened to me? I was going to become stronger. I was going to change. I was going to make Sasuke-kun and Naruto both proud of me. I wasn't going to be staring at their backs anymore. I was going to be walking next to them. I was going to be a real member of Team 7. I was going to be someone that they could depend on, and not have to protect anymore. I was going to be strong. What happened to me? Alright, so sign here, and here, Tsunade murmured, pointing at the appropriate blank spaces for Jiraiya. Initial here, print here, full signature here. Is there an end to this? Jiraiya asked, his hand pausing over the paper. He sighed when Tsunade gave him a blank look. Guess not, he muttered under his breath. Tsunade rolled her eyes as she watched him scribbling away. Hey, you're the one that wants to make Naruto your apprentice. Besides, this is nothing compared to the actual amount of paperwork that I have to do every day. Yeah, but you have Shizen to help you, Jiraiya whined, and you take sake breaks. Don't be a child, Jiraiya. Tsunade-heim. Don't Tsunade-heim me. You're almost done, hurry up. Have you told Naruto yet? Told Naruto what? This, you and me, years ago. Anything? No, what? No, I haven't told I'm making him my apprentice. And no, I haven't told him that we're his parents. I thought, maybe, we should do it together? I don't know, I barely understand it all. Heh, he definitely is your child though. What's that supposed to mean? He has your temperament, and your hair, your nose and your chin, and your eyes. Heh, he is without a doubt your child. I don't know, I seem to remember that you acted a lot like he does when you were a child. And he has your hands, your loyalty to this damn village. I remember once, during our first Chunin exam, our only Chunin exam, that you beat the shit out of some kid because he said that Konoha ninjas were all tree huggers. Yeah, I remember that actually. I wasn't the only patriotic one in the team. You certainly were the most though. You say that as if it was a bad thing. So much has been done to you in this village, to all of us, Naruto especially. I just don't understand how you can love this place so much, after everything you've been through here. And yet you're the one wearing the special hat, yeah? Yes, irony of ironies. I say that I hate this village, and yet I am its leader. I have sworn to die for Konoha if I have to. How weird is that? But we're sidetracking, Naruto, remember? He's what we're talking about here. Yes. So? I'll tell him that I'm making him my apprentice tonight. Ask him. He's never been given a choice. And you should at least give him one choice. Don't demand things of him. He might not want to leave Konoha. He loves this village more than any of us, and might not be so ready to leave as we once were. Alright, and the other thing? Do you want me to tell him? No, we should do it together. Alright. White hair and the flash of a kunai. Pain, digging, horrible pain. Are you listening, Naruto-kun? Scream, fight, digging, horrible pain. I'm going to tell you something very important, alright? Kunai dripping blood rose and fell deeper into his chest. Orochimaru-sama sent me. He knew that you would follow Sasuke-kun as far as you could. Burning, digging, horrible pain. Please stop. Why won't you stop? Make it stop. You can be quite predictable when you want to be, Naruto-kun. Someone make him stop. But then again, you are from Konoha, a rat hole infested with weak idiots like yourself. That's why Sasuke-kun is leaving. Because you are, like all the shinobi in Konoha, weak. You're a failure. A flash of pink hair, a twisted sneer. Stop. You're a failure, Naruto. You couldn't even bring me back Sasuke-kun for me. Gray hair, a blue mask, please, why won't you stop? You were never strong enough. Sasuke was always stronger than you. You never had a chance. Midnight black, red eyes, ethers. You'll never become Hokage, if you stay this weak. Flash of white, bright, beaming smile. Digging burn-inch horrible pain. In 3 years, Orochimaru-sama will make Sasuke-kun his new body. And he'll have the Sharingan. Then, Orochimaru-sama will conquer the shinobi world and be immortal. The pain is intense, but it's no longer digging. 3 years, Naruto-kun, and then Sasuke-kun is Orochimaru-sama's. Naruto jumped panting. He wiped away the sweat that had collected at his forehead. Just a dream. It's just a dream. Oh, you're awake. Sitting on the ledge of his window was Jiraiya. The old man grinned, his white teeth gleaming in the dark. I've got a proposition for you. Do wanna listen? Ino clenched her fingers tightly, hoping that this little motion would help her gather what nerves she had together. She really didn't know what she was planning on doing, but all she knew was that she needed to see Sakura. She needed to comfort her old friend. So, without a thought, she'd shouted to her mother over her shoulder as she left the house that she was leaving. Without waiting for her mother's reply, she'd slammed the door shut behind her and headed down the streets. She was without a doubt glad that her father wasn't there, or else he wouldn't have even thought of letting her leave the house unprotected. She lived in one of the few sections of Konoha that hadn't been destroyed by the Sound invasion. All around her, there were no signs that the village had even been invaded. If anything, it looked like life continued on as usual. Sakura lived on one of the same streets, and it only took Ino a few minutes to jog the 4 blocks to her house. She stopped uncertainly in front of the door, and then forced herself to knock. She wasn't a Yamanaka for nothing. Working with Shikamaru, Chuji, and Asuma-sensei taught her that she had to force herself sometimes to do things that needed to be done. And this was one of the things that needed to be done. Thankfully, it was Sakura who opened the door. She wouldn't be able to stand it if Haruno-san was the one who'd opened it. Haruno-san always was just a little disappointed with her because she'd helped Sakura to continue on with her studies as a ninja. If she hadn't become friends with Sakura, there was no doubt in Ino's mind that Sakura would have dropped out of the academy and gone to be someone's trophy wife. Haruno-san would have been happy with that future for her daughter. Instead, her daughter went on to become a genin. Her daughter became part of a team led by a legendary, perverted jounin. Her daughter was a shinobi that could be killed on any random mission. Her daughter would never become someone's trophy wife. Haruno Sakura would always be a shinobi to Konoha. Ino? Sakura asked as she leaned on the doorframe. What are you doing here? Ino fidgeted. I came to see you, obviously. I wanted to see how you were. After everything that's happened, she finished rather lamely. Yeah, do you want to come in? Sakura offered. She stepped away from the doorframe to allow the blonde in. Sure, I would love to. Ino smiled and walked into the house. Author's note. Hello again. So, you guys won't believe what I did this weekend. LOL, I went to Washington, D.C. Yay, me right? Me and my family had a great time. We had bagels for breakfast, and decided that New York, our home state, is the only place where you can find good bagels. Went to the Holocaust Museum, and spent like 4 or 5 hours there, saw the Washington Monument several times, went to the Lincoln Monument, and stood in pure awe at the sheer size of Lincoln, and all the details and stuff, and finally went to the White House and took a bunch of pics at the gates. And before you ask, no, we didn't see the president. I've always dreamed of moving into a penthouse apartment in Manhattan, and if not that, moving to London or Paris with my BF, but I am seriously considering moving to D.C. It's like a much more peaceful version of Manhattan, I think. I don't know, maybe it's because it was such a beautiful day yesterday. Anyways, this chapter. I love the ending for it, don't you? When I finished it, I thought yes. Perfect ending place. For some reason what's-his-face never mentions Sakura's family. We don't know if she has 2 living parents, no parents, or 1 parent. We don't know if her parents are civilians, or shinobi. But, I'm guessing here, from the way Sakura was dressed as a child, and as a 12-year-old, Sakura's parents are civilians. If we were to compare her to Ino, who has a shinobi father, we'd see that Sakura has no family techniques, and her clothing as a genin is almost adorable. Sakura is adorable. Ino, as a child and as a genin, is not adorable. She looks, more or less, like a kunoichi. Think Kurenai and Anko. She wears clothing that is slightly flirtatious/sexy, while still being something that she can move around in. Of course, we can pin this off on Ino wanting to look pretty/beautiful, thus making Sakura's way of dress acceptable. But I don't think so, we'll just have to wait and see in canon. But for the purposes of this fanfic, Sakura's parents are civilian. Let's see anything else? Oh yeah? My Naruto reads comic books. I remember that there used to be this ending for Naruto where it had a sorta cartoonish thing going on. Anyways, the point is, Naruto was reading a comic book in it, playing video games, and there's something else, I think. I don't remember anymore, lol. Whatever, so, here, Naruto reads comics. If only for the reason that I can't think of him willingly reading anything else. Then, there's Naruto's nightmare. Ah, no more apostrophes. Someone asked for a bit more detail about Naruto's torture. There it is. Originally, I was going to make it into a flashback of the whole scene, but it felt so awkward that I scratched it out. Then, I decided to make a nightmare/dream scene instead. I still think that it's still a bit awkward. But for now, it'll work. It's more or less the same thing. Just add in a few muffled screams, Kabuto's smiling face in the place of Sakura, Kakashi, and Sasuke's faces, and you'll be fine. I can't make a good torture scene. I'm sorry. Wah. I'm a failure too. Wah. Anyways, I'm going too long on this, so I'll stop here. Don't forget to review and give me tons and tons of feedback. LOL.